Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. All right, so let's get started. Welcome, panelists and everybody in the audience. Thanks for being here. My name is Connor. I'm going to be hosting or moderating the panels again today. The format is the same as it's been in the past. Some questions will be for individual response, and I'll call on each of you randomly, and others will be open for a more open discussion, debate-style discussion. We're going to ask that you please keep your answers short and concise, preferably under a minute. Doesn't happen too often, but if you hear this sound, that means it's time for your closing thoughts. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. We will, as we normally do, we'll start with just introductions from each candidate. Please introduce yourself and give a brief statement on what unique experiences or views you bring to the Spartan Council. Cav, we'll hear from you first.
Right off the bat. Hey everyone, currently core contributor, former or current Spartan Councillor, and newly self-appointed head of ecosystem for Synthetix V3. I think a lot of you would have seen me around. The unique capacity I probably bring to this cohort of candidates for Spartan Councillor is that I spend all day, every day with the core contributors on the product side of the protocol. My main takeaway or my main campaigning piece for this epoch will be as head of ecosystem for V3, shifting us to a platform, opening up V3 to our ecosystem partners. That's all from me.
Great, thank you, Cav. We will hear from ML Pseudo next, who I'm told goes by ML. ML?
Yes, thanks for having me, everyone. I'm relatively new, definitely not an OG like Cav sounds like he is. My background is in private markets investing, specializing in analyzing financial institutions, which is why I found Synthetix interesting to analyze. I think this was December 2021 when I first looked at Synthetix. I first got into crypto in 2016 and had a full-time job at Anchorage in 2018. It's for those of you who don't know, it's the crypto custodian and bank. I've also worked with BitPay and Copper. In terms of council type positions, I was on the first Zcash grant board in 2021, where we were responsible for giving out grants to the ecosystem to support Zcash development, as well as general privacy goods like just with the Tor Foundation, we gave them a Rust based grant. I'm also a trustee at the Eco protocol, where we make monetary policy decisions for our stable like coin. So I think my contributions to the SNX community will be in terms of three parts. The first part is analytical rigor. I love doing financial modeling, and I think that's something that I think I'll help do as we make our decisions on SIPs. Also, skill at explaining complex financial systems and strong business development, which I think all of which will contribute to helping us scale V3 to its potential.
Thank you, ML, and welcome. Gautham, we'll hear from you next. Introduction, please.
Hello. Hi, I'm Gautham. I'm one of the people behind Polynomial. So I'm one of them. So we've been in the Synthetix ecosystem for more than a year now. We started by building option vaults on top of Lyra and Synthetix, and currently we run a front end on top of Synthetix Perps. It's been live for like over a month. Yeah, so I'm a dev, and I also manage the community and the marketing team, so I can bring perspective on the side of Synthetix Perps, as we are like a major user of the product and how it can like impact. And currently a major focus is on that direction, and since we are like directly correlated with how the growth of that affects us as well, so yeah, very much it.
Thank you, Gautham. Daniel, your introduction, please.
Thanks. Well, I think it's perhaps the fifth time I'm doing the introduction for Spartan Council. I've been a Spartan since like the early days of Heaven 2018. I've been a very engaged community member. Always tried to use my expertise, which is software engineering to kind of help, at least from the community side, like back before even Grants DAO was the thing. And I've kind of made my way Synthetix and in community with the Discord bots. But anyway, that's been said many times before. After that came Tailies, taking on the binary options as part of Synthetix ecosystem. And yeah, I kind of missed being involved, so I thought give it another go this epoch. I bring a unique point of view by being a smart contract architect, but also, like I said, I've been here for a long time. I know all of the history, which sometimes is helpful, sometimes less so. And with V3, I'm hoping to, and being in the council, I'm hopeful to kind of finally have this tighter bond between Synthetix and Tailies by creating some very exotic pools, for example, for overtime that would tap into Synthetix staking liquidity.
Great, thank you, Daniel, and great to have you back. Jordi, your introduction, please.
Hey everybody. So yeah, I'm part of Selini Capital. We are both a crypto trading firm and also venture capital, and we do a lot of advising. We bring a few things to the table. One, we are probably the most focused on decentralized exchanges of any entity fund in the world. We talk to every single project, do deep dives. We understand the space extremely well, and we're also maybe the most active trader on decentralized DEXs. The other thing we do is we advise on tokenomics, which is, I guess, quite relevant. So that decision has to get made pretty soon, and that's one of the main things that we're looking to contribute to. As well as we have a lot of people that we know in the ecosystem in general that we can introduce Synthetix to, and generally what we've been trying to do is help the core council with introductions and getting connected to the right people sometimes. So that's Selini.
Thank you, Jordi. Adam, your introduction, please.
Adam Cochran, infamous for writing far too much on Twitter, but also you've known me over the past 2 epochs on council. I think the track record kind of speaks for itself of not shutting up, but in a good way. I will always bring an opinion to the table on things that are coming forward. Unique perspective really around, we've got a lot of technical candidates and we've got a lot of non-technical candidates, but we don't have a lot in the middle. I try and stand in both ponds. While I'm not technical by nature, I read enough Solidity and can do enough Solidity to get by and kind of try and blend both perspectives. I think this epoch for me really comes down to 3 core things: improving the accountability for Spartan Council members and making sure they're actually active, ensuring governance security, and then making sure that the SNX token is a first-class asset within the ecosystem as we move towards V3 and start that shift towards being more of a B2B2C kind of platform.
Thank you, Adam, and welcome back. Cyberduck, your introduction, please.
Hi guys, so I'm OG for a couple of years. I've been multiple epochs on the Grants Council. I'm currently a council member at Tailies, where I'm also working on an alternative front end, aka the Quenta of overtime. And here at Synthetix, lately I've been mostly active in the V3 channel, exploring potential future V3 use cases other than the perps. Also wrote one of the first tokenomics proposals, SIP 314, well, co-wrote together with Ivan and ChatGPT. Pretty much what I'm looking forward to out of this epoch is nail down those tokenomics with the rest of the guys, and hopefully, look towards launching V3.
All right, thanks, Duck. Danny, your introduction, please.
Hey everyone, I'm Danny. I've been on the Spartan Council the last 2 epochs. Been a staker since 2020 and a user LP of just about all of the partner protocols, be that Quenta, Lyra, Overtime, Polynomial, etc. professionally have a lot of experience as an operations and product management leader at various tech companies. And like Adam said, we've got a lot of diverse backgrounds running for council this epoch, which I think is great, including many from partner protocols and venture capital firms. I think it's important to note that I'm not that. I'm running purely as a SNX token holder representative. And I don't have any other motivation other than to achieve maximal value for SNX token holders, the lifeblood of the protocol. And that includes myself. So not afraid to say that. And with this epoch very likely to be the most consequential as it relates to the SNX token, I think it's important to have that perspective on the council.
Thank you, Danny. Welcome back. Jackson, your introduction, please.
Yeah, hi. Hello, everyone. Yeah, so, this is kind of the second epoch, being current councillor for the last epoch, from the start of the 2023, coming into kind of really look at more how Synthetix can actually bring more better experience for traders and the UX for actually the kind of perpetuals product that we're looking at. A little bit about my background is one of the early core contributors to Synthetix. Work on Synthetix Exchange and the perpetuals, probably the V1 version of Synthetix, and really my interest has been looking at other comparing things. Probably at the moment you've got a lot of competitors in who are also doing on-chain perps, and they have obviously different Oracle and different collateral, and kind of like what is it? It's almost like different synthetic LP pools. That is quite interesting. I think that also very competitive in the current market that Synthetix has to actually now compete with. So a lot of that has been kind of like what I've been kind of bringing to the table is been talking to the core contributors. How can we improve our offering, and also in this epoch, I think big focus would be B3 Synthetix, and how also as a Synthetix staker, I also have quite an interest in what happens with the token utility now that we're going to be bringing in like multi-collateral into probably into the future of Synthetix to scale to the liquidity pool. So yeah, that's a quick short introduction about myself and where I see what the next epoch for Synthetix.
Great, thank you, Jackson. And Rocket Capital, can we get your introduction, please?
Yeah, hello. How's connection? Am I here right?
It's great.
Hello?
We can hear you perfectly.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Sol, Rocket Capital founder and CEO. We're ASIC facility builders who sell sellers and venture capital firm and community of crypto experts. We also delivered SHA basic ASICs, but little struggle at manufacturing scaling. And as a founder of crypto startup, Synthetix caught my eye a long time ago. And as I saw how you evolve and grow, I absolutely made my decision to not only want to be a part of the future of Synthetix, but also take a part of providing this future to the community and also to my members. My mission, as I think, will be to drive revenue growth and unlock the value of Synthetix community through strategic partnership and innovative marketing strategies with DeFi sphere. And I think with the proven track record of building and leading high-performance teams, executing successful go-to-market plans, and achieving revenue targets in highly competitive markets, I bring a result-oriented mindset to the Spartan Council. My expertise in blockchain technology, cryptocurrency exchanges, venture capital, product development, and relationship building enables me to make informative decisions on overall employment on proposals and parameters changes that will optimize the Synthetix protocol for the benefits of our whole community. And I'm also really passionate on the ecosystem and committed to actively participating in the voting process. I'm actually not so far discovered Synthetix, to be clear, but I think I'm also, according to my expertise, I can add strategic approach and deep understanding of DeFi landscape to Synthetix. And I'm dedicated to collaborate with my fellow council members, the Synthetix community and other stakeholders to share the future of the protocol and ensure its continued success in the fast and developing DeFi space. And I think with my experience, skills, and unwavering commitment to the Synthetix community, I'm confident in my ability to contribute efficiently to Spartan Council and play a pivotal role in advancing the governance and strategic decisions of the Synthetix protocol. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome. Did you say your name was Sol?
Yeah.
Ah, great. Great to have you here, Sol. All right, so moving on to question 2. Question 2 will be for open discussion. Anybody can chime in as they see fit. How do you think Synthetix can best attract more users in the future? Again, open discussion.
I don't think we should. I think we should be attracting more protocols and supporting them to attract more users. I think we need to do a better job of understanding the needs of integrator protocols and engaging with them to find the tools and systems that they need to better reach out to users, whether that be looking at affiliate or kickback support in the contracts, better reward templating for them to manage collateral rewards. Whatever they need to empower that should be our sole focus, because they are the ones who will long-term maintain that engagement with end users. And I think that's something that we've not put forward our best foot on so far without V3 Live, and we can do a better job of.
I think Adam is right that it's the integrators that are attracting the users. They're offering the user experience, and that is critical for retaining users. But what we can do at Synthetix is to attract liquidity. Liquidity scales, the SUSD liquidity as well, and availability, and with sufficient liquidity you can back way more volumes than you can with limited liquidity. So I think our goal at Synthetix should be to make sure that we can scale that liquidity, and with V3 alternative collaterals like the ETH, that's likely a possibility, and obviously that's what we're betting on. And I think that is important that we offer competitive yields to that ETH, to non-SNX collateral. And in addition to that, we should also make sure that the creation of vaults markets for various use cases other than just perps is possible. So we are basically playing the infrastructure play, but also the liquidity play.
I thought Adam's point was very interesting. The fact that the bottleneck so far has been the quality of our, I guess, integration tools, our BD outreach. I wonder if that were solved, though, are we confident that users are able to quickly understand and onboard into our kind of mechanism, our kind of design? And on that note, I think for me, Synthetix is not easy to understand if you are outside of the current Synthetix network. So I think one thing that we will need to do is better documentation for users to help them better understand what is it exactly they are doing when they interact indirectly or directly with our protocol.
To respond to that and clarify my point is that if we're doing our job correctly as a protocol, users shouldn't need to understand what we do. If a user goes to Quenta and Quenta's maintaining that relationship integrated with us, that can be outlined in their docs, but they don't really need to worry at the end of the day about what Synthetix is doing, because they're using Quenta, and we shouldn't be stealing the thunder from our integrators nor making any complexity headaches for them. If we're doing it right, we are as seamless as possible in the back end.
I'll chime in a few things. So one is definitely the right partnerships, and definitely the B2B angle is important. I think the current Quenta percentage split have been a little bit critical. I think we need to attract, as you guys have been saying, better partners, more partners. So one of the things that we want to focus on is, making a smart decision. There's two ways to look at it. Front ends don't do anything. Why give them anything? And then, the other ways they're actually supposed to be doing all the, acquisition of users and creating kind of this meta game for them. So I think the current economics have to get reworked a little bit on that side. Another one is fees, just trying to be competitive in fees. I do have a feeling, and one of the things we're going to be pushing in general over the next months is awareness of, very high fees like GMX and GNS. I think their fees are higher, and not just like the actual trade fees, but some of the other fees that they give. There will be some education of users over time on both fees and also fair price. So we'll get into the Oracle situation later, but that will help get users having kind of competitive fees. Of course, the OI caps, like all this stuff, and this all plays into the token, unfortunately. It's all one big discussion in terms of, if you get ETH liquidity, how do you distribute rewards between, ETH stakers and SNX holders? And it's a fine balance, and I think making a good decision there is going to lead to long-term users.
Are you advocating for lowering the fees even further than our previous SIP? Or am I misunderstanding that?
So in general, like, the way to think about it is fees need to stay high insofar as you're protecting from sharks, and there's a lot of sharks. In DeFi, there's a lot of firms just looking to front run, pick you off, Symbolic and all these kind of places. The more you have high fees, the more you protect yourself from them. Then you start finding solutions like low latency oracles that potentially protects you a little bit more. So you can, start to have a bit better fees without getting picked off. In general, I think users will over time start to care about fees and making decisions that allow you to not have negative exposure to traders, and finding a balance between that and good fees where you protect your liquidity providers is like this delicate dance that is going to keep on going. So I'm not advocating immediate kind of cutting fees, and I'm just saying over time, figuring out a way that you're not getting picked off is going to be important.
Hey. Yeah, so I come from an integrator standpoint. So essentially, one of the biggest issues, what I feel is, like, when we talk to people, a lot of people don't know about Synthetix perps, and like a lot of people use GMX and things like that, even though the fees are quite high. And it's just like, I feel like we need to improve a lot on the outreach side, but we are trying a bit, and I guess it's something that we should solve, as like Adam mentioned, like we should be like trying to get the users, and it should not be the worry of Synthetix. I think the more focus should be on the liquidity side, like making sure like we can have like higher OI caps. A lot of the times a market is very interesting and people are starting to trade, but the issue is like the OI cap is hit and then like nobody can trade anymore, and this is happening. But there is a recent SIP to increase the OI cap and decrease the fees. I think that would potentially solve it, but still like the caps are quite low because of the liquidity. I think we need more liquidity on L2 and to make sure like we can have the perps a bit bigger, because in the next 2-3 months, I think perps are the biggest focus for Synthetix, and I think we should focus a lot more on it, because there is going to be a upgrade for GMX also coming, and that is currently the biggest competitor, and we need to make sure that we take advantage of this while we have it. So while we have an advantage of, like, we are kind of better now in terms of fees and everything like that.
All right. Any final
I think
thoughts on
it's
this question?
clear. I think it's clear GMX does better marketing. So I'd agree with Gautham that we could do better.
I want to add a little on this.
I also think a lot of Synthetix, kind of the reputation has been that, the collateral backing is not as obvious is liquid, there's that risk that profits can't actually be taken. Previously, that it's only I think as a protocol in general, I think opportunity moving over to e-collateral and other non-Synthetix collateral is actually a huge opportunity to actually bring more users and other protocols to integrate with Synthetix. I think that's one of the areas where I think protocol should really focus on is how can you design the the collateral and other non-Synthetix collateral to be able to be kind of like reused inside the DeFi ecosystem. You'll be able to bring a lot more users who are interested in holding those collateral to be just be a liquidity provider and in general increase the liquidity for the protocol and for SUSD, which is what is needed to trade on Synthetix perps. And also another area I also think obviously the SUSD liquidity is a big issue for large sizes that a lot of people think get to actually acquire SUSD to then trade on Synthetix has become like this hurdle for other people to kind of like this kind of reputation has actually something that I think can be improved through obviously marketing, from pushing out more of a different narrative, and I think also another area I think Synthetix is now working with a lot of different strategy is really front end in integrating, but I think as a council and a protocol, we still need to actually be quite involved in, I think, in the way that we look at which front end we could actually provide. There's a fee, there's the fee share that we have. So obviously the incentives are in the right place. The best UI would, in general, be generating more users, not generating more traders and volume, whether that's the perpetuals product. And but I think also it's quite important that we somehow have actually some input into that, because the trading experience is very important. Where I think people would go to, if I want to trade perps on chain, I'll go straight to Synthetix, not Synthetix, but like maybe Quinta or one of the other front ends. But I don't think we're there yet. So I think that's the important part, is the whole trader experience and the ease of onboarding users.
Jackson, you had one good point in regards to SUSD and the experience of getting SUSD first to trade on our platforms. I think that's a good point. A lot of people want to trade using other stable coins, and in theory they could do so on Quenta, on Polynomial, etc. I mean, an example is Tails or Overtime, where people can participate in Tails and Overtime markets with USDC, with USDT, with DAI, with a swap to SUSD done on the background, using perp, for example. And I think this is something that maybe Quenta, Polynomial, and others should explore, allowing that direct trade into our direct deposit of margin into the perps using other stable coins with a swap on the background.
Would it be-
May I a little bit, guys? You talked a little, pretty much about competitors like GMX, but I'm also want to point out that I let you think about don't underestimating the level finance deployed in BNB Smart Chain. And so, as on my thoughts, we recently hugely discovered the amount of fees and actual amount, their process of onboarding people and their loyalty program and other, and they're huge on marketing. And we 4 years ago, before the previous halving, we as a company made a huge partner program to huge startup, and it fully was based on CPA program. I know it's a little hard to deploy in such sort of communities, but I want to point that you should, I guess, think about not so marketing, but thinking with cooperating more with community members based on how efficient the traffic will be finally. So I saw how level is growing and how much the fee rose, and how many people I guess they onboarded with their marketing. So I guess it's a huge point to take a look on them. Thank you.
On the earlier SUSD point, like we did abstract away USD by USDC on our walls in the past. We'll be doing that in the future for perps, maybe in like coming week. One issue that is there is like SUSD is often depegged, like not depegged, like it's a little bit off. And right now we are focusing more on like larger size users. This can be an issue, and I think we should put some focus on that. It's not something that can be solved on the integrator side.
Yeah, that circles back to the SUSD liquidity problem, where having SNX as the sole collateral limits scaling of SUSD liquidity. Once we have that ETH as a collateral, that will help, assuming people who get the credit, who get the SUSD for their collateral, don't just hoard that SUSD and they, put it out on the secondary market.
All right, everybody, some great discussion on this question. Unfortunately, we do have to move on. So anything else on adding to your user base, please, let's take it up in the chat. But again, really great discussion. Moving on to question 3. There have been many discussions regarding the Chainlink versus Pyth off-chain oracle. What are your thoughts on switching from Pyth to Chainlink when it's launched, and why? This question is for individual response. Danny, we'll hear from you first.
So I was on the council that voted for integrating Pyth to launch Perps v2. I'm proud of that decision. I mean, since January, we've generated, I think, about $6.5 million worth of fees for SNX stakers. I don't think anyone would advocate now, since it's been a resounding success, in my opinion, to continue to wait for Chainlink oracles. I mean, they're clearly the market leader when it comes to security, but they've been incredibly slow. I don't think that we want vendor lock-in for anything, or centralization risk. And I think that includes oracles. As far as I know, the stance has never wavered that we'd be integrating Chainlink as soon as they launched. But at the end, we're building a backend solution, and it should be up to the integrators to decide if they want one or the other, both for redundancy.
Thank you, Danny. Sol, your thoughts on this question? Sol, Rocket Capital.
Hello. Got.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
So, I think Chainlink is more future-proof decision. As we discovered their roadmap, and we actually got some conversation with the team itself. I don't quite. I'm desperately want to get on the comparison side on both of these protocols and decisions, but I think, according to my thoughts, Chainlink is more future-proof because they have a vision to make their product profitable, and that's the whole point of choosing Chainlink. Because on the nowadays market, we see that the products should not only be, I guess, popular, or they has to be profitable for people to believe in them. And I think that the overall marketing plans and the overall decision making in Chainlink proven itself for a time there's been a market. And I actually the $7 price tag for Chainlink was so attractive for me. so I hold and looted a lot of bags for Chainlink at $7. And I think I'm not deeply compared both of these solutions, but I think as for the thoughts, not only me but Rocket Capital, we're advising people to take a deeper look on Chainlink's not only decisions but the product itself. So I think my thoughts, I will compare. I guess that's my work to do. But as we discovered Chainlink, we absolutely believe in them. So I think the voting is the best principle to decide. But I think the Chainlink will be not only future-proof in terms of collaboration, but in terms of revenue growth. So that's it.
Thank you, Sol. Cav, your thoughts on this question?
I already dumped some comments in the chat. I think it's a little bit of a false dichotomy, and I think we've got overly distracted by it. Personally, I was a little bit unimpressed with the response from Chainlink when we proposed to use Pyth. Over the past couple of months, it's been great, to be honest. I don't think there's been any issues so far. I think we need more oracles, not less. We're a platform, and we want our integrators to have choice. So if there's oracles that work well, especially when we can use them in concert with other oracles for redundancy, yeah, we should have more, not less. So whoever brings great products to market in time, we should consider using them on their merit.
Thank you, Cav. Jackson, your thoughts? Do we still have Jackson?
Yes.
Your thoughts on Chainlink versus Pyth, and whether we should be switching back to Chainlink once their off-chain oracle is launched.
I actually think, really with Chainlink and, we've been a partner with Chainlink, from day one. One of the, very first kind of examples of a kind of like synthetic exchange and assets, utilizing Chainlink. But I think now with the partnership as well we have with Pyth, we actually benefit from having kind of that redundancy and also the improvements that we can see using more than just one oracle provider. I think in that way that Synthetix actually benefited being using off-chain. The oracles has been a huge huge change for the platform, and also we're able to now offer a lot fees that are a lot lower and competitive with other exchanges, and also in general, I think this whole competition between Chainlink and Pyth, I don't think which oracle provider we have to use. I think we could actually use kind of either or both oracles, which we currently do. So yeah, that's my kind of general view, is that having a good relationship with oracle providers is important, and potentially if I think Chainlink is working on this new off-chain oracle as well, which is something that we could actually explore with them. I think this should be something that we're open to exploring as well with them. But I don't think we should need to have mutually exclusive, partnerships or use with either.
Great, thank you, Jackson. Daniel, your response, please.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's been more or less the consensus in the room. Yeah, I don't think we need to go exclusive here with anyone. I will say that one benefit of having this kind of community-driven governance and Synthetix being in the stage with regards to decentralization where it is, I think we don't need to drive decisions by politics or allegiances. So yeah, we can just use the best tool for the job. It sounds like Pyth was that, and it allowed us to scale to the next level with regards to perps. Chainlink has also been there for us. I remember the days when Synthetix, and I'm sure Jacko knows that as well, has been using centralized oracles. So Chainlink was a lifesaver when it appears with decentralized oracles. So yeah, we should just do whatever is best for scaling the protocol without really considering. Again, this is the benefit of being a DAO and not a business, that you don't need to worry about B2B relationships, at least not to a notable level, in my opinion.
Thank you, Daniel. Gautham, your response, please.
Yeah, I think it's too early to have this discussion. We currently have a lot of markets. We can't just move to Chainlink, and if we can't shut down the markets that we have, so let them make the product, let it be live, then we'll compare both of them and see whatever is better. Right now the mechanism is pretty good as a backstop by Chainlink, so just because they launch something, moving it to it doesn't make any sense in a logical way of thinking, I think. So
Thank you, Gautham. Jordi?
Yeah, sorry. I think first of all, I appreciate the directness of defending and supporting your bags, Rock Capital. That's admirable how open you are about that. So that's what you're supporting. But yeah, I'm actually kind of okay with what Chainlink is starting to offer, and I think them charging a small fee, which is very reasonable kind of size, for potentially a better Oracle and faster Oracle solution is okay. The drama around GMX and what happened there, I think, is interesting. It's created some hype. That's fine. It's kind of understandable that they're running a business, and they're moving towards a model where they're creating partnerships for a lot of volume and charging a small fee. And probably for off-chain assets, anything around FX or commodities that might want to focus on in the future, they're probably gonna have a better solution. So yeah, strangely enough, I guess the last comment about DAOs can have a bit less friction with other businesses is maybe true, but I think in general, if Chainlink offers a better solution and wants to charge a little bit for it, that could be the longer term direction.
Thank you, Jordi. Adam, your response, please.
I don't think it's our job to pick winners and losers or to tie us to anybody outside of Synthetix. We should be a neutral platform that aims to onboard and support any Oracle that integrators want to use that meets a safety standard. But I think also in this discussion, there's context missing, especially for new people, that, we talked to Chainlink about their off-chain Oracles ages and ages ago, even well before we made the Pyth integration. And the reason that we made that integration is it was live. We wanted to do our rollouts, and Chainlink told us that their timelines were not ready for us. And even to this day, the new off-chain Oracle request system is not ready for prime time. And as Danny said, we've made some $6 million in fees in the ecosystem, very large volume use of this, and it's worked well. We made a decision to go with what was available when a partner was not able to provide the services we need. And I think if we focus on the drama of tying our bags or tying ourselves to our bags or to tying ourselves to other projects, we will fail to make the decisions that are best for Synthetix. And the only thing that we should be focused on is how do we best support our integrators with whatever tools they need and what is safe to prevent manipulation in this ecosystem. So I don't think we should ever default to anyone. We should support as many Oracle providers that can meet a safety standard as possible and let integrators select what is right for them.
Thank you, Adam. Duck, your thoughts.
Yeah, I think I'll just add to the echo chamber here. I think in hindsight, we made a good decision. Redundancy is important, and that's what we have, unlike others. And as for V3 and integrators offering multiple options of oracles to tap into, it's just a plus. It's a benefit, unlike limiting to just a single oracle. And yeah, that's it. I think we're fine where we are, and if new oracles come our way that they can support V3 markets and V3 integrations, we should embrace those.
Thank you, Duck. And final thoughts, ML. What do you think about this question?
Explore topic. I won't belabor the conversation, but I think I agree with people with the idea that we don't want to be tied to just one. I think it's safer both from a business standpoint as well as an oracle manipulation standpoint to have a diversity of sources. Now, it's not clear to me what the economic pricing trade-off will be, but we'll have to explore that when the second option is available.
All right. Thank you, ML. Moving on to question 4. Recently, it's been suggested that the Spartan Council should have more control over discretionary funding of the Synthetix Treasury by diluting the power of the Treasury Council. If this were to occur, can you please discuss how you suggest the Spartan Council allocate those funds in the future? This question will also be for individual response. Daniel, we'll hear from you first.
Thanks. I think that's a very good question. I did pay attention to the drama that's recently been happening in the Treasury Council. I'll go a bit into history as well. When the Spartan Council, like the whole conversation started with decentralizing governance further and creating the council, which was likely, 3 years ago. I actually did think that Spartan Council will have much more of a say into the treasury stuff. I think Treasury Council kind of came afterwards. I understand Treasury Council. I think they were doing a good job. It's a very delicate thing to manage, but I do think time has come to maybe give it a different shape. I think Spartan Council should take more of a decision-making role in the way inflation is handled. I mean, it already kind of handles inflation, but also a huge chunk of circulating supplies in the treasury. So kind of making a decision on how that will be utilized. And I think especially with the, was it DWF deal, Treasury now has enough runway in stable coins, which could be directly given to CCCs, if that's still a thing. Sorry if I've missed if it's not, and just paying core contributors directly from that. So yeah, I'm sure we can go into many more details over it, but I think that is enough to touch the surface of things.
Thank you, Daniel. Duck.
Yeah, I mean, I think having the Spartan Council approve proposals that direct inflation here and there seems reasonable. Obviously, this would give a directive to the Treasury Council to execute those transactions. But I think it's reasonable expectations to have. We do have that at other protocols. We have that at Tails, where at Tails, the Tails Council votes to direct Tails incentives here and there. And I think having that ability and having that discretion at the Spartan Council is a valid thing to have. Obviously, unsure if it should be called Synthetix Improvement Protocol. Maybe process-wise it could be called something else. But in regards to the SNX token being distributed, I think that is something the Spartan Council should have a discretion to work with. Probably not the stables or other assets held at the Treasury, but I'll be very okay with having this discretionary right at the Spartan Council for the SNS token distribution.
Thank you, Duck. Danny, you're up.
Not much to add. I'm fully aligned with what Cyberduck just said.
All right. Jackson, your thoughts?
I think it would actually be having some allocation of I believe from the Treasury for Synthetix Council would enable it to work on a lot more different projects. Also, ability to then provide a budget for new projects, and also for the CC to allocate budget as well, which kind of like is what something the Synthetix Council hasn't been able to really do. A lot of the management of budgeting and allocation of resources has been a very tightly controlled by the DC. So I think it's something that will actually improve the quality of the kind of council members actually have a lot of input and a lot of ideas and thoughts for the protocol, but one of the biggest impediments is actually not having any say in where budgeting or allocation of funds is used at the moment. So the council can actually say, a lot of things about where we want to use those funds. It's kind of like what Daniel was actually alluding to. It's like council can have all these ideas, but without the actual capital and budget to then really implement any of those, that's been kind of all be driven by the DC. But I think some kind of capital allocation would go a long way for also the legitimacy of the council.
Thank you, Jackson. Sol, your thoughts?
I think we heard some reasonable thoughts on these ideas, and I think the ideal way to find out what will be reasonable for Spartan Council is to move on and to test all of these decisions, I guess. And I think the best way of contributing to the decision making of implementing some of the features and other thoughts colleagues introduced is to try them and to not only think of them. And as I heard, you guys have been along in crypto and along building Synthetix community and that protocol. So I think the best way is to try them and to find with reasonable metrics if they're available or not, and if it should it be implemented, and should it be even further thought on implementing some of the ideas in the future. As I guess people will choose and metrics will find out was it profitable and was it reasonable or not.
Thank you, Sol. Jordi, your response, please.
I mean, obviously the voting and the election for Spartan Council is extremely competitive and much more so than some of the other councils. And in a way that, I feel split about it. There's two things. Like one, if you're even going to have a council and you're going to go through the process of having a Treasury Council and all that, they should have some power, right? On the other hand, if all the kind of main stakeholders are mainly focusing on the Spartan Council, then maybe the Spartan Council should have more say, and you should kind of, have more discretion over things like spending. So I would say like either find a way to not have a Treasury Council and just kind of have somebody from the core team. I'm not sure how feasible it is, but maybe they can execute some of the things. But in general, I would say I lean more towards giving the Spartan Council more rights, given that the election is much more competitive and so is more representative of what people expect from. I mean, we saw a bit of a shit show last time with certain people getting elected in some of these less competitive races that maybe were not fit for it. So I kind of lean in that direction, given what we were seeing.
Thank you, Jordi. ML, your thoughts?
Yeah. Actually, this reminds me of the an issue we had on the Zcash grant board. We were in the position to identify a lot of opportunities to bring in, new ideas, new players in the ecosystem, but we didn't have the budget to act on them. So it was very frustrating. And eventually, one of my parting gifts was to help the next grant board get a budget, and they've been able to do a lot since. So I think yes, I think the people who are seeing a lot of opportunities should have some discretionary budget so it doesn't become frustrating. I don't think you want people who on the council who like spending a lot of time just, trying to scrounge out a few dollars to do some things. At the same time, I do think it's better to have a separation of duties between the people approving the SIPs and the SCTPs and the people who are managing a sizable treasury, because otherwise it's like having the legislative and the executive arms of the government be controlled by the same group of people. This does have a conflict of interest and I'm not sure, but just thinking about it, spitballing, it could reduce our decentralization surface. So I think for me, I think we should have some budget just to be able to get stuff done quickly. But at the same time, it shouldn't be one entity. It's just too many risks there, I think.
Great point on the separation of powers. Gautham, your response to this question, please.
Yeah, I think I also think like it should be separate. I don't think it makes for the even if there should be some funds allocated to the Spartan Council to bootstrap new products and things like that. But in general, I think Treasury Council is better separate and takes care of things without getting approvals. Like why? Some things should like remain private within the SNX also. I think not everyone should care about like what small things are paid and all those things.
Thank you, Gautham. Adam, your response?
I mean, I'll start off by saying something rare in that I very strongly agree with Jordi, and he and I are not always on the same side of an issue, but I do view it as a major governance risk point in that there's so much voter apathy in decentralized governance right now that we're worried about getting the right seats filled for Spartan Council, never mind Treasury. That's one problem. I'll actually go to the extreme, though, and say that I agree mostly with Kane's proposal of dissolving the Treasury Council, not because of the lack of good candidates on the Treasury right now, but that it is overkill in its current iteration and that it is opaque. There's a lot of deals that have been made and a lot of movement of funds that the community doesn't have the level of transparency around that they need. And that kind of thing should be handled in the same way we handle SIPs. So I'd be for, shutting down the Treasury Council, putting a large allocation of their current funds into something like a Furo streaming payment to the core contributors, some to the Grants Council, and some to the SC, so that they have streams over time to continue to do their job. And then the rest of it can be dripped out to staker rewards or something like that and just fully dissolve the Treasury over time.
Thank you, Adam. And wrapping up, Cav, your thoughts on this question, please.
I think separation of concern makes sense. Asking the Spartan Council if they want to control the Treasury with lots of money is probably going to end up with one kind of answer. I think keeping them separate to some extent is good. I think more communication and accountability is probably good, even if it's retrospective. Treasury Council does need to do things that are sensitive. I think the idea of everything being open for the Treasury does is kind of naive, but retrospectively they could probably do a better job. I do know that generally the TC has been full, certainly in my experience, full of people pretty committed to keeping the protocol robust. But I think a bit more scrutiny and a bit more retrospective accountability and communication between the TC and the Spartan Council is the first step. In regards to dissolving the TC or distributing it out, that's a spicy proposal. I think importantly, the protocol would need to be revenue sustainable, which we're certainly working towards before that could be done completely. That's all from me.
Thank you, Cav. Moving on, question 6. This one should be pretty quick. It's just about term limits for Spartan counselors and other elected DAO members. Do you think there should be limits, term limits? Why or why not? This question is open for group discussion.
We're already having a hard enough time filling a good pool of candidates and not worrying about governance attacks. I'm definitely an advocate for getting new blood in frequently and having a balanced council of new and old representatives as it brings the best to the table. But I wouldn't want to overly fence out good talent that's interested in contributing.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, like, have we we found a solution to Sybil resistance? Like, we've obviously had Sam and other alts just make multiple accounts, and how would we even enforce this? Is this even like feasible? And if it is, I'd love to hear what how somebody would figure out that someone has already run and who they are. I don't know. For a DAO, it's very different than a traditional presidential election where you know who's running. So if there's not even a way to do this, I'm not sure we should get too deep into discussing it.
That's a good point.
Well, I guess if somehow Synthetix manages to find a solution to avoid this and to get away with fraud and some sort of bad individuals in terms of onboarding, like council members and other stuff, I think that will be a huge, not only community development, but also a huge marketing endeavor to push further the limits of not only council but the product itself. So I guess if this question is, I think it's reasonable. I think the community should think about measures to prevent it. And if it's, it's very valid theory to get with an idea on just maybe an idea to how to avoid that, and this idea may lead to other partnership with some products who also have similar problems. That's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'll pitch in as someone who's actually been in council for a notable amount of time. Like I think I've had 3 or maybe even 4 epochs in a row. I think it's a non-issue, like, because one, voters kind of take care of those who are not, doing their job responsibly. So I've seen it in action, like that people who aren't just being responsible about their role are not voted in the next epoch, and those who are and who have a good track of being present in the SIP presentations and voting, I see no reason why we wouldn't want them to be in as many epochs as they are willing to commit their time to. So yeah, for me it's a non-issue.
Yeah, I think more broadly, without thinking about specific candidates, in general, I think you want a handful of councillors that carry over each time for continuity. Otherwise, you lose institutional memory. But I do think it is healthy to set a limit on the number of consecutive terms, but not be too strict, right? I don't think we suffer an abundance of top quality candidates each round. And so then I think if super top high quality councillors want to stay for a long time, we shouldn't limit that either.
Yeah, I think it's up to each individual to assess whether they still have something to offer in a position or not, and then it's up to the voters to validate that. Interesting question is how do we avoid people sibling the councils? And I don't know if we can solve that, but maybe make it more difficult. Maybe add another requirement that councillors should be present in a call and actually speak, rather than just be voiceless and vote on proposals.
You're gonna get like a Kanye West AI voice talking on the council.
Sure, why not? But let's just make it more difficult for them.
I mean, there are KYC solutions, but again, I think there hasn't been a single occurrence, I think, where we actually had an issue with someone being in the council for too long. Like, just people also need a break, like we've seen, so it takes care of itself either by voters or just by fatigue.
I think like rather than solving the a way of like limiting, you can say like at least like one like you can put like 1 or 2 people should be new to make sure like new people get a chance, and like some been doing that in elections in some parts when you have like an assembly of people and then you want to make sure like some people get representation, so you can have like 2 or 30% should be new or something like that. It doesn't make much sense to remove people, and it's just like 3 months, so you should keep at least like 1-2 years. It's fine, I think. For that.
All right, I think we can go ahead and move on. Next question, question 6, also open to the group. Which Synthetix v3 feature or potential future application are you most excited about and why?
I'll try to break the ice if no one minds. So I kind of touched upon it in the first question, but we've had talks about. I mean, the answer is just the permissionless approach to creating markets and to allocating a chunk of the depth to some exotic products. And the reason I'm saying that is that I believe we at Thales have had many such potential products, like there's no shortage of idea or even execution, but combine that with power of liquidity that V3 offers, just the exposure, I think there are some very interesting opportunities there. And one thing that was discussed is, having, for example, a dedicated overtime pool. Yeah, so that answer.
Yeah, that dedicated overtime pool, that's something I was very enthusiastically discussing with Noah, whether that's technically feasible, and it looks like it's technically feasible. So this is what I'm excited about on V3. Not only the perp products, but also the exotic markets, like Danny said. So like for the overtime sport vault, just to give some background on how what that could be, is LPs would provide collateral in V3 for which they would in return get, for example, profits from the underlying sports AMM of overtime. And this would work in a way where the credit against that collateral would not be taken by the LPs, but would be taken by the market maker, who would then distribute through the rewards distributor regular profits. And this was also enabled with SIP 320, which adds a burn lock where it would be compatible with a weekly profit epochs or periods that we have at Thales. So I'm excited about that, and I'm really looking forward to seeing these exotic products in V3.
I think like one of the good things is that you can spin up any curve, so potentially you can make interesting products. So you can, if something is spinning up in DeFi, all of a sudden like a new product, you can kind of create a derivative for hedging it, which can be a good use. But we have some ideas, but I don't want to share it, but we'll make something.
I really want to see the actual spot synths flourish, because I think there's still a huge untapped opportunity there. I think we're really thriving on these derivatives right now because they are much easier to integrate and build an exotic product off of. But I look forward to a day when we could see, an AMM fully built on, synthetic spot assets that are all synths, without needing to have a collateralized position and actually be able to take control of that spot asset. I think when we can level that up, that'll be a very powerful thing that no one else in this space is ready to replicate.
The pool and vault system that allows stakers to choose what kind of exposure they want to have. I kind of personally don't like the idea that there's only one big risk pool. I think we'll be able to attract a lot more people with different levels of risk appetites, and also bring us closer to traditional derivative markets where you can choose your exposure to different markets, different counterparties. And I think greater choice is always a good catalyst for growth.
I'm not quite sure that this idea should, and I guess it's up to voting, but I personally think that's a huge market of potential customers of Synthetic is crypto miners, and as no product in industry developed a solution that can implement huge amounts of BTC that mined and transferred to the sex and not touching any of DeFi protocols. I think that's a huge starting point to think about. And we personally, as seller of these machines, reasonably can tell that these people have a lot of money, and this money is in digital form. Mostly they accumulate BTC, but on the times when they have to pay bills, they actually hold them as stable coins on their taxes, So I think implementing some sort of pool, as I guess, with direct transfers to the products and for the liquidity swapping for, I guess, stable coins and collaterals issued by Synthetix is a good way to accumulate this audience and to also accumulate a huge amount of funding that these people have in their pockets.
All right. Anyone else? Anything to add? Exciting V3 features. All right. We move on. Question 7. Question 7 will be for individual response. Voters have seen multiple competing V3 tokenomics proposals over the past 2 epochs from various council members. Of all the published plans to date, which plan do you support most at this point? Danny, we'll hear from you first.
So of the actual proposals that have been documented, I think I align the most with Cyberduck's, since it doesn't give away too much upfront in terms of fees for synthetic stakers. I mean, we've been marketing staking Synthetix and the value prop for the token as receiving 100% of fees. So I don't want to move away from that too quickly. I do really like Kane's comments about a dynamic fee sharing system with some sort of daily volume number that starts a sliding scale of rewards for the other collateral types. I would really like to see us lean into some liquid staking derivatives as collateral instead of just ETH, since we won't need to compete with the ETH staking APR. And since I think the deepest liquidity issue will be in the perps markets, which are typically delta neutral, I don't think that should be too much of an issue. So I'd like to see us explore that more.
Thank you, Danny. Adam, we'll hear from you next on this one.
I mean, I have an obvious bias towards my proposal, although appreciate that it is perhaps far too complex to, move through as one SIP. I think the thing that I care about the most is making sure that the SNX token is still a first-class citizen as we move through this new model. It should be getting a majority of the fees when it is staked as a backing in this ecosystem, and we need to make sure that at some level it is still involved as collateral. I don't think it is a fair move to the people who have long supported this ecosystem to begin to degrade the value of the token within the ecosystem. And so I think I'm supportive of any proposal that at its core maintains those values and the relationship with longstanding members of this community who are taking on the risk to enable this product.
Thank you, Adam. Duck, we'll hear from you next.
All right, so being the co-author of SIP 314, I'm obviously supportive of it, and I'm very happy and open to discuss, any adaptation, introducing any dynamic models as Kane suggested. But overall, I'm leaning towards, simplicity and modularity, and that's what the proposal is. It retains SNX as collateral in V3 for probably in what we would call the legacy pool. That would be backing perps and spots and whatnot. But it would open up V3 to ETH collateral and us having some fee capture from that ETH collateral to back to SNX without SNX being directly involved in that. And that ETH collateral would allow us to scale V3, but I think it's crucial that we don't right away become like parasites on that ETH collateral. We don't suck up all that fees from that ETH collateral. We need to be able to scale that. We're not killing SNX as collateral. It's still there. The liquidity is still there, but we just need to grow that liquidity. And by opening up to ETH collateral and not being too aggressive on eating fees from that, I think we can safely scale that collateral and then consider assess the KPIs of that and assess what we're seeing, and maybe then consider, are we charging enough back to SNX for that ETH collateral or not? And if not, and if there's room to grow fees, then we can grow those fees. But I think it's crucial that we do grow that liquidity. We do scale SUSD, and we do scale V3 usage, and I think that is what I'm basically aiming for with my proposal.
Thank you, Doc. Jackson, your thoughts?
Yes, I actually think this proposal from Cyberduck has been one of the most probably one of the better proposals where obviously we don't want to actually be totally removing taking away a lot of the SNX fee capture that it actually has at the moment with V3. But at the same time, it's a good balance that in order to scale the liquidity and with each collateral and also other potentially other stable as collateral in these pools, we actually need to offer some kind of like I think it's like at the moment as well, different protocols, different APYs we can actually offer. So it will be kind of like quite market driven. So once we actually can see how much what kind of amount of fees or the APY the protocol needs to offer for other like collateral to actually provide that collateral, whether and that enough trading fees are generated, that then we can actually move that kind of scale how much fees will be split between liquidity providers and SNX stakers. I think the more capital efficient trading can be done, then the less external ETH collateral we would need. So I think that's the most I think compelling proposal so far. Obviously, I think it makes sense for Synthetix stakers as well.
Thanks, Jackson. Cav, we'll hear from you next on this one.
Thanks. I think this is probably the best example of what we need to work through as we shift to an ecosystem and a platform. We are a derivatives protocol. We need collateral and we need liquidity. So we need to bring in ETH as collateral and we need to retain the value of the SNX token. I definitely prefer the simpler of the three tokenomics proposals, but would prefer it gets even simpler. I think it's been a little bit of a distraction. I do understand the fear or concern because we haven't had other collateral types before, but adding more collateral should significantly grow the opportunity for Synthetix and its token, not diminish it. So that's why I think it's really important we complete this shift to the ecosystem. We bring in ETH as collateral. We get a simple, elegant value accrual to the SNX token, and we actually focus on building out the ecosystem. At the moment, we're too concerned about, we're unjustifiably concerned about value destruction of SNX token. I think it's completely the opposite. We need to get ETH as collateral, build out the ecosystem, and get our integration partners really pumping. That's it from me. I got to go do some work. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Cap. Thanks for being here. Daniel, your response to this question, please.
Sure. I'll try to keep it short. Sorry. I kind of need more time to get my head fully into the various proposals. We did have different collateral before, in a sense, with wrappers, and then we had many issues because of that. So yeah, again, getting back to the point that I need more time to just wrap my head around why we cannot grow liquidity with SNX alone, because I do remember a time when we had billions of Synth's market cap. But I also see the value in having it as an additional collateral, at least in the sense of like diversifying the whole protocol risk of not being of not having illiquid SNX as the risk of a black swan scenario. So, but I also agree with the sentiment that we should probably focus more on product, and that the value of SNX will kind of be driven by the value of the product. So it's kind of a distraction to spend too much time just worrying about tokenomics before the V3 product is ready for masses.
Thank you,
I have
Daniel.
relevant
Sorry, go ahead.
Can I go next,
Sure.
Connor? Cool. Yeah, I wanted to go next because what I have to say touches on what Cav and Daniel said. So on Cav's point about being unjustifiably concerned, I do sense a little bit of that, and a very similar thing happened with Zcash, where 3 years ago we considered adding other assets to our shielded pools, and we were very afraid that we would not be able to capture the value fully, and other tokens or protocols will be kind of stealing rev share that should come wholly to us. And what would happen to Zcash token at the time? This is literally the same thing that's happening. And 3 years later, you can, if any of you follow the Zcash ecosystem, we decided not to go down that path, and we went from top 5 market cap to I'm not sure we're on the first page anymore. So I think that this concern that we would not be able to capture 100% value, I think should be eclipsed by the idea that we could very well be outrun by competitors or other kind of substituting solutions for users. So I just wanted to lend that analogy or anecdote to people as they consider the trade-offs. So that's to Cav's point. And then to Daniel's point, there are competing proposals. It does take a while to wrap your head around them. I have wrapped my head around some of them, not all of them. And frankly, my contribution won't be a separate proposal. I think all of these proposals, they have good theories, they are compelling in different ways. But what I'm uncomfortable with the process is we aren't putting onto paper or in a very structured format the trade-offs, say in hypotheticals that we're making. I'm talking about putting down in financial models, for example. Could we say, oh, if we go with this proposal, maybe we see a 20% increase in collateral, 20% in fees, of which 10% goes to stakers. Like, how does this impact valuation? How does this impact our staking rates, et cetera? And then you compare these side by side. I think that's better than kind of focusing on, at this point at least, focusing on just the qualitative trade-offs, because I think we have gone past that. So yeah, that's my contribution on process rather than specific proposal.
Thank you, ML. Sol, your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, I think community added so much good thoughts on that, and I think the more is better. And as I heard, if guys was on top of and I think if you were there, it's not too complicated to be again there. And so I'm actually looking through all of your proposals on this topic so far in the last 5 minutes, and I think the roadmap that you come up with and the processes that you doing is right. And I guess the only structural issue is to I guess is to implement them more quicker and to be on a pace with all the community. And the community is actually looking at the stats and looking at the amount of and the as we look through all many products for I guess last several years, we understood that the key metrics is the sustainability of growth, and this sustainability comes from reasonable products and reasonable pace. And if you can compare with that and can provide reasonable solutions for a reasonable problem in a short time, it's more valuable than to try to come up with the best solution, I guess. And it's also up for discussion, but the speed is the key principle, I guess, in the modern market. So the whole idea, as I think, to get the idea that the product not only was suited for the first 10 of CMC or other trending sites, and it's suited now, but it takes some time and some effort to be part of the first 10 or 20, because they act, and the Synthetix should too. I guess the whole point is to start. Thank you.
Thank you, Sol. And Jordi, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, while I am sympathetic to the comments about this being a distraction, and it is a distraction because it's very complicated and it's a big thing, and ultimately the token price plays into this, and everyone's here for the token price in one way or another. It's such an important decision, and it has to be done properly. Last time when I was on this panel 4 months ago, I didn't know much about the Synthetix community or how things work, and I was just wrapping my head around the basics. At this point, I have understood the big picture very well, and I would, if we get reelected, Selini will kind of mainly be focusing on this problem. We think we're uniquely positioned to help balance out all the viewpoints that have been expressed. So just to kind of give, a quick high-level picture, and I'll use this as my closing statement as well, because I don't want to repeat, and this is kind of like the question that comes to the core about for the next epoch, what we're looking to do. So first principles wise, obviously the token has to accrue value, and at the same time, we're asking for another token to come in as collateral. And ETH is clearly the one. I agree, first of all, that staked ETH is a great use of staked ETH for many reasons, but not having to compete with that yield, but also being able to provide additional yield. I do think there will be a lot more staked ETH over the next year. We're seeing the deposit queues go up a lot. So I love that idea. I think from a first principles perspective, it makes it easier to attract liquidity if you're not having to give 5% more, but you're already including that 5%. We have been talking to a lot of LSD protocols recently, and I'm starting to understand their architecture very well, and there are some issues with deciding which kinds of ETH are we just doing exclusivity with Lido and Rocket Pool, but then you have a rebasing token, and then you have Frax ETH, which these are all have different issues with integrating with, and we'll have to deal individually with those. But from a first principles perspective, staked ETH should definitely be used. It will reduce how much we as SNX holders have to pay the ETH providers for that liquidity. So going along that path of first principles, the next thing that comes up is first class citizen, second class citizen. So I agree with Adam that, and even Sam, he did have a good point that as is right now, there's a lot of trading losses, like GMX traders usually lose. And, if you're on the other side of it, that volatility is juicy. And if you go to a GLP type of model, where your main token, in this case, Synthetix token, doesn't have that volatility, and it's just a 30% or whatever percentage you kind of set. First of all, it doesn't get the upside of being on the other side of losses. And, Sam had a point that if you make it so that there's no upside on that side, and it just becomes a very simple fee accruing token, and then people start valuing you on a P basis, that probably limits the price of SNX, because people will just say, okay, what's the fees? 30% of the fees. That's it. Well, if you have upside from trading activities and providing liquidity and being the market maker and getting spread, then that's actually better for the token. And I say this while at the same time I like the simplicity of what Cyberduck proposed, because simple is good and people should be able to understand what's happening with the token. Even the whole staking process is so convoluted, and adding more complexity, I think, is a problem. So just to recap, one way to go about this from a first principles perspective is to view the ETH that will come in more as that's the second class citizen. And all you're thinking about for the ETH that will come in is, what do we need to pay this ETH to stay compared to what is the market rate? And, maybe that market rate is 5%, maybe it's 10%, but we should treat that probably as the non-variable return, and then have the SNX have the variable return, and actually have it get, the spread and the volatility of the traders. And that's more aligned with, both increasing the value of SNX, but also kind of, we're responsible for SNX as the Spartan Council. So we should make good decisions where the SNX token and the liquidity doesn't get drained, but rather, we're providing a service as market makers, as liquidity providers, and we're not getting picked off and losing money to people. So I would take Cyberduck's proposal and shift it with adding the variability maybe on that side, with a bit more upside, and then capping the ETH side. And then at the same time exploring which staked ETHs we want to include, and figuring out just technically, if you have a rebasing token or a different type of token, how is that all going to work? How liquidation is going to work? And, maybe there's a curve pool that has multiple staked ETHs, and maybe we just use that. I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. But some early thoughts. And if we get elected, this is something we'll deep dive in and try to help the SNX community with.
All right. Thank you, Jordi. Moving on to question 8. This one is for individual response. Just one more question after this before closing statements. Question 8. Should SNX inflation be halted altogether as it has been proposed in SIP 276? Daniel, we'll hear from you first on this one.
Sorry. Yes. The short answer is yes. A longer answer is that it's been 4 years since inflation was introduced to get people to stake. At this point, I don't think really attributes to whether someone stakes or not. I think it's about time to just focus on actually getting fees from product usage. And if we can't do that at 2023, so like 5 years since inception, then I don't know what we are even doing here.
Thank you, Daniel. Duck, your response.
Yeah, so inflation has been around to basically incentivize staking, and the goal of that was to grow liquidity. And liquidity is growing. I think we're going to continue growing it in V3 with ETH collateral, and the usage of inflation is questionable here. And obviously, revenues are growing as well, and fee accrual to SNX stakers are growing as well, and they are pretty much on par. We know the inflation numbers more or less today. So I think stopping inflation is warranted. Though potentially there could be use cases of inflation to bootstrap exotic V3 pools, but that could also be potentially done through a proposal where it's not necessarily inflation, but it's more like use of treasury funds to incentivize certain V3 pools, assuming the Spartan Council gets those discretionary rights to suggest those and vote on those. But overall, I'm in support of halting inflation.
Thank you, Duck. Jordi, your response, please.
Sure. I mean, while I do appreciate the 300 meme, and I think I like that it says, there's no coincidences. When we're still like in a state of flux, and you might want to use tokens to incentivize certain parties to allow you to shift and things are quite shifting. I do worry about losing that flexibility. In general, token inflation, as we see with Bitcoin, where you need the token inflation for the miners to keep actually providing a service, is generally useful. So I would need to first make sure that there are no cases in which this will end up being a problem. So you can always find a way to burn tokens if you want to get back to 300. I guess I lean slightly more on let's take some time and make sure before cutting all the inflation options.
I think I'll step in here because I have the same opinion. I think it's risky to halt inflation and launch a new version and new tokenomics at the same time. So I don't think this should be on the table right now.
Thank you, ML. Sol, your thoughts.
I think the overall question of inflation is quite pivotal and hugely discussed in not only DeFi or cryptosphere, and I guess the whole point of 2023 is to implement some of the decisions that can make an asset less not only inflatable but more valuable and more I guess more and allow we should have some sort of gap within the standardized process of rising up or lowering the inflation of SNX, and I used to look through the voting process, and in the 100% improvement of the votes of reducing it, and I see that the whole point of inflation is not only community question, but also a hugely discussed problem for all of the products, which tries to implement all of the decisions and technologies in DeFi sphere. So I think that if, according to all of council thoughts and all of the decisions that will be placed further, it can make sense to outperform other products using not only technologies and a good amount of connections with other protocols, but to get some news articles that Synthetix protocol can control inflationary point of SNX economics, and I guess the whole point is to finally become a top 10 CMC protocol, is to be fully concerned that the people who firstly hear about Synthetix will onboard 100%, because they have answered all of their questions, and the final question is the core token inflationary. If it will be no, and if the next answer will be that they have a plan to reduce it and to control it, that will be, I guess, the final selling point of the whole idea of trying to get back to the top.
Thank you. So, Adam, your thoughts?
It's beyond time to kill inflation. We should have done it ages ago. We are at a point where the protocol is starting to drive revenue and has a true and valuable use case as we roll out V3 with the staking of ETH. If you cannot get people to use your product without paying them to do so, you've built a bad product. We've relied on the inflation crutch for too long. We do not need it anymore, and we should kill it off and move forward with stable economics, rewards that are coming from fees. Rewards can be stipended from the Treasury Council holdings if necessary as we roll out this V3 to kind of smooth over any gaps. But this product is ready to stand on its own, and it is beyond a joke that we have not taken it seriously to axe inflation. And I think it's one of the greatest conflicts of interest that Spartan Council has had against the benefit of the protocol.
Thank you, Adam. And Jackson, your thoughts?
Yes, so my thoughts on inflation is, it's been a very useful tool as well as driving the right incentives from people to stake and use SNX as collateral. I do see it when we migrate over to V3, having inflation still be a tool that we can use for incentives is something that actually is really powerful, and I don't think it's the right time to actually cut off inflation and stop that all. I mean, that's been planned. I don't actually think revenue at the moment from trading activities from the purchase market is actually sufficient enough to provide the return that people are looking for. So if we want to bootstrap liquidity with ETH collateral and all the other collateral types, people will really ask that question, like, is the actual trading, the trading fees and volume that Synthetix will generate from V3 from day one be enough for people to be interested? I think, inflation as a incentive or tool is actually very powerful. Inflation has dropped significantly from the earlier days as fees replace that. I think once we reach a threshold where fees actually reasonable and the returns on that is sufficient, then I'm supportive of actually stopping inflation once and for all. But I think for Synthetix, still has to stay competitive as a DeFi protocol. It has to compete with a lot of new new entrants, new protocols that are coming up. Whether that incentives can actually come from Treasury, how long Treasury would be another discussion. But I generally feel like until V3 is rolled out, inflation could be a useful tool for those incentives.
All right, moving on to the next question. This one will be open for group discussion. Is Synthetix too DAO heavy in terms of necessary human input? Do you think that a fully decentralized project should have less representative governance and more immutable deployed code? And what, if anything, should Synthetix be doing now to more fully decentralize itself? Again, open for group discussion.
Sweet Jesus, yes. I think this call is a great example of it, right? There is so much up for debate and so many different facets to this governance, from all the different councils to all the different things we have to approve. And I think we should be working towards the goal of killing all of that off. The challenge being there are some components of this that will always have deep complexity around thinking through the different values and collateral types and things like that. Those need to be offboarded to the integration protocols at the end of the day. But it's the same reason that I'm in favor of killing off TC. We should be progressively decentralizing this, and our job as Spartan Council should be to set this DAO up for a world in which we do not need to have a Spartan Council long term. And I haven't seen us take nearly enough steps towards that. And I think it's one of the most pressing issues that we need to continue to evaluate is get this to a stable point where each cycle that we're going through, we have less and less need for the governance process until there's no need for it at all.
So I'm gonna back that up by agreeing in a nutshell, but I would so the part about immutable code I think is kind of different than being too human heavy. I think Synthetix, due to its nature, needs mutable code. It's more about who can mutate that code. So and what I'm aiming say there is that protocol DAO has been like, I think the idea to deprecate it was like there 3 years ago, but it's still the body that I don't know if it's even properly formalized, but yeah, so moving away from protocol DAO to like, well, the first step would be Spartan Council having more of a power to perform upgrades, and then just moving to fully on-chain governance and upgrade power.
Yeah, immutability is not equal decentralization. So yeah, while having immutable contracts is nice, I agree with Danijel. By nature, it's very difficult over here. We do need to upgrade contracts. There's just a lot of things changing, and they're very liquid. But in terms of human heavy, yeah, we are probably a bit too human heavy. I think even the councils are a bit too populous right now. But it's a controversial proposal to scale those down.
Yeah, I agree. Like we can move in that direction, but I'm not sure that the ultimate goal is to. I mean, unless it's just going to be a few smart contracts and there's no core devs needed to maintain or do anything else. Because as long as there's core contributors, then you kind of need a Spartan Council to, be a balance and protect the interests of the holders. And it's kind of cool to have, the DAO and have a council. So I would say we can definitely move in that direction, but I'm not sure that the end goal is to, unless it's, just smart contract code that never gets upgraded or changed, but that's extremely unlikely with the way that, Ethereum is, and there's all these changes to be done, and there's new L2s and L3s. So we can move in that direction, but not all the way. Cool. And I have to hop off, but hopefully my statement before about the tokenomics is kind of what we want to put forward as our closing statement as well.
To clarify my point on that progressive decentralization endpoint, the goal is that you've made a system that any integrator can make their own set of decisions, and we don't need to be managing those decisions of risk modeling on the Synthetix end, and things will be mutable, but mutable by those who have deployed from a factory and are doing their own integration onto the back end, and that the mutability should live with them rather than with us.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So I guess the whole point of proceeding and building a really perfect and profitable product for all of the stakers and communities to be building it. And as I see, the whole point of Spartan Council seems pretty reasonable for this envelop. And your guys are awesome, and I see huge potential in Synthetix. And as I see, you're open for the discussion, and you're really striking to try to implement the best and not to try to be as progressive as wants to use it for, I guess, skyrocketing growth and exit scams. I absolutely sure that you're here to build a really good product, and I think the whole point here to be more, not I say angry, but more provocative in actions, and to be first, as I think. And the community who drives it is reasonably passionate to do that. And I think we will come up with great thoughts and great decisions. Thank you all for your thoughts, and we absolutely come up with some thoughts after that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sol. All right, moving on to closing statements. Looks like many of the candidates have left or already given their closing statements, but of those who remain, Cyberduck, we will hear your closing statements first, please.
I'll be concise. I'm just looking forward to us deploying V3. I mean, launching V3, ETH collateral, scaling liquidity, and having that translate to increasing value accrual for SNX under any tokenomics we eventually pass. We'd be happy to work with everybody on improving SIP 314. Adding maybe some dynamics there that Selini spoke about. Those I kind of liked. Other than that, I'm really looking forward to exotic markets on V3, not just the perps. Perps are great, money maker. Not gonna lie, but I'm really looking forward to exploring or experimenting with exotic markets in V3 and maybe bringing some of those Tails products back home to SNX. I know at Tails we have been using SUSD liquidity without any value accrual back to SNX. I know that can change with V3, and I'm really looking forward to that. Would be happy to be a counselor and represent you guys. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Doc. Daniel, closing statements, please.
Thanks. Yeah, much like the opening statements, I think everyone in the community knows that I am accountable, present, which seems to have a lot of importance based on previous epochs. I'll definitely represent voters, voters' best interest, and just try to do my best to make something happen between V3 and Tails and overtime, which is what I'm most excited about.
Thank you, Daniel. Sol, closing statement, please.
I think the whole idea, we discussed it, and the whole point is to make. We've personally, if you building a really huge product for the last 4 years, I personally come up with a decision that the best way to grow is to be on touch not only with competitors but with all of the community. And as I see you guys making really great job, and I guess the whole point of Spartan Council is to try to find out the 10th of possible decisions to make it clear for all that this product is the best in its class, and that the product will lead them for the better future. And that's the whole idea, is to make people be happy that they choose some good stuff. And that's the whole point of this community, and community will drive it further. Thank you for attending, and thank you for the please to speak for you.
Thank you, Sol. Adam, closing statements from you, please.
Yeah, I think it is pretty clear the path that we have forward right now for Synthetix on the technical side, because we have genuinely what I believe to be some of the best core contributors that I've come across in the entire DeFi ecosystem. But the things that could trip us up are the execution that we do around governance during this rollout and how we bring it to the market. And so I think this epoch is very important, and that we should be pushing for more accountability from those that we elect to Spartan Council in showing up, being involved, and getting the job done, especially when we're paying them these inflationary stipends. We should improve our governance security so we never have to spend another epoch worrying about our ability to have a governance system. And then we need to push forward on our very clear agenda of bringing in staked ETH collateral, maintaining value accrual to SNX, and I think there is a very ripe market opportunity for us here that is clear cut. And I think the only pitfalls we can make right now are on our governance side as a community. If we make some of the wrong choices here, that is our biggest risk, because I have no doubts about the ability of the core team to execute on the technical vision we have ahead for us, and I think it's incredibly exciting.
Thank you, Adam. And ML, closing statements from you, please.
All right, cool. I'll keep it short. So I agree with Adam. We have some of the best core contributors around. It's really quite impressive. I think what's really exciting about your ecosystem is whatever we're doing with V3 really breaks new ground for DeFi. We're opening new markets, going cross-chain, giving traders lots of different options that they didn't have before necessarily. I also really like the vibe. This is kind of a maybe unrelated statement, but from what I've seen on Discord and on this call, I do like the very open, sharp elbow kind of vibe, but I think everybody's trying to get to the best result, and that's kind of my speed. My major contribution, I think, will be, especially as I'm newer than some of the other counselors running, I think my contribution for this epoch would be on data-driven decision making. And hopefully I can help people in the community, the other core contributors, people on the other councils understand why we vote a certain way.
All right. Thank you, ML. And thank you, everybody, for being here. That is the end of our panel for tonight. For anybody who couldn't make it live, we're going to be uploading the recording on our podcast so that everybody can listen and make informed voting decisions. Thank you again, everyone, for being here, and good luck, Spartans.